With CJ Carr being named Notre Dame's quarterback, just about all of the major college football programs have named a starter. And a few of them, like Carr, like Damon Williams, like Bryce Underwood, are very young. Let's talk about the best young quarterbacks in college football.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. As I noted at the top, this is all about college football's young quarterbacks. I'm going to go through this list today. I've been waiting to see what happened with Notre Dame's before I did this podcast. I put it off a couple of weeks, kept waiting. There aren't many other decisions left. This one was pretty big. Kenny Minchie loses out to CJ Carr. So I'm going with this. I'm going to finish up my top teams for the college football playoff tomorrow and the day after, and also do the Iowa State and Kansas State preview. But this list, you've got to be either a first or second year player out of high school. There are no redshirt sophomores, any juniors, any seniors, all freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and true sophomores. That is it. The young guys that a lot of programs are investing in to be their guy, like Dylan Raiola last year, started as a freshman at Nebraska. Bryce Underwood is expected to be that guy at Michigan. But before I dive in, I do want to make one distinction. No matter what metric I went by, and I looked at a bunch, yards per game, total yards, touchdowns, passing completion percentage, freshmen and sophomores just don't hit the top 25, top 30 really any given year. Even Caleb Williams and Drake May, while they were great in stints as freshmen, they still had some problems, but they were exceptional still. They finished in some of the top metrics, top 25. Their first year as quarterbacks, it was more likely to be, even for those guys, like their second year. And of course, Caleb won the Heisman. So if your quarterback, whatever program that you root for, this is their first year starting, you're going to see some ups and downs, and we're going to talk about that right now. And we're going to start off with a guy that I think most people are not surprised by, and that is DJ Lagway at the University of Florida. 6'3", 235, 240 pounds. Before anybody asks, no, I don't have an injury report. He is a guy, though, that has a cannon for an arm. I have an extremely high expectation for this year. They've got a ton of speed. Aiden Mizell. They've got Trey. They've got Dallas Wilson. Like, they've got a ton of guys that have upside. They need to be coached up, and they got to take that next step as a receiver group. But DJ throws the deep ball with a higher propensity than any other player in college football, and he's good at it. If Florida's going to take the next step as a program, DJ's got to be that guy. Here are a couple of the things that I wrote down on my notes about why I'm so high on DJ Lagway. I had a chance to be around him at the Under Armour All-American game when he was coming out of high school. Charisma, easygoing, handles the media well, somebody that's relatable, which I think is a very underrated statistic, like just how well people like guys. Like, if the media, we ask this behind the scenes, we can't really report about it, but we'll talk to other players. Hey, what's the quarterback like? The guys that aren't that popular in any circumstance are usually the guys that kind of fade off into the sunset. DJ, somebody other people liked. That's important if you're going to lead a program like Florida in the Southeastern Conference. Charisma, deep ball. He's got touch on the underneath ball, which a lot of guys with a cannon will struggle with. DJ Lagway is very good at it. I expect him to be a guy that will improve his passing percentage. But again, remember, he likes to throw the deep ball, so his percentage is not as important as somebody that's running some form of a fast-paced, get-it-out-quick offense, kind of like Mike Leach used to run. But that's okay. Florida's a power football downhill team that likes to throw play action, take more risks on a 7, 8, or 9 route, get the ball down the field. But he's got a feathery touch. And when DJ runs, he's a load. Again, he's 235, 240 pounds. He's not a lot of fun to get in front of. So I think DJ will be running some RPO this year, although, again, because he's been dinged up so much, they'll probably try to keep him out of harm's way. Next up, another guy, I'm just going to kind of go right down the list here of players that have made news here recently. I talked about it in the opening. CJ Carr, Notre Dame's redshirt freshman quarterback. He only had a handful of passes last year, is a very unique player. His family lineage, he's got somebody directly above him that played quarterback at Michigan. His grandfather was the head coach when they won a national title. He was defense coordinator under Bo Schembechler. Football is in CJ Carr's blood. Ironically, he goes to Notre Dame because he's got such a background with Michigan. You would have thought he went there, but he chose to go his own path. He won a very contested battle with Kenny Minchey, but we really don't know what to expect from him. So I'm just going to give you a couple of notes about Carr, and you can take this any way you want. But I've seen him play live, been around him, had a conversation with him a few times. I just think, kind of like with DJ, although Carr's a little bit more talkative, he's a guy that people are going to rally around. He's somebody that is very competitive on himself in particular, sometimes perhaps too hard because nobody's perfect, but he's got one of the best deep ball opportunities for any receiver that can get down the field you're ever going to see. Much like DJ, it's just a feathery touch, and CJ Carr will not shy away from throwing a guy open. If he thinks you're supposed to be in a spot, he'll trust his man to beat the defender across. Like if he sees a safety in the middle of the field and he's got a guy coming underneath on the post, he's going to bang it. If he thinks he's going to get the guy like a tight end on a corner route, he's going to put it on him. That's the difference between him and a lot of other guys. He sees it before other young players do. I'm not saying that he's Drake May, but if he had a huge year in his second season of college football like Drake did, it wouldn't shock me. But to that point, just as a reminder here, they're still young, and the competition you play and when you play them matters. He will certainly be tested early, as CJ Carr's first game as the starting quarterback for the Fighting Irish will be in Miami Gardens at Hard Rock Stadium against the University of Miami. They get a week off, and then their second game at home, but it's the Texas A&M Aggies. So arguably the two best defenses that Miami and Notre Dame, or Miami and Texas A&M on the schedule for Notre Dame, that's going to be really interesting. But how will he grow? I don't know. But Notre Dame finally has a bevy of receivers, and I think they'll be able to throw the deep ball a little bit. They were really bad at it last year. That could be the difference on whether or not they do or do not make the playoff. We'll see what happens with Carr. But long-term, this kid's probably an NFL player. I don't think he's got as high a ceiling as Lagway because Lagway is so big. But his ability to read things, kind of like Lagway, especially on the deep ball, make him a very unique football player. When we come back, we're going to talk about Bryce Underwood, Damon Williams, and several other studs around college football. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one financial tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or in your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. With Monarch Money, it makes it easy for you and your significant other to view all your finances in one place, making it convenient to help yourselves, your kids, and your grandchildren. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. This show is brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. It even has an AI agent that handles after-hour calls, answers questions, and captures leads, so you'll never miss a customer again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. That's openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. OpenPhone. No missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Truly appreciate you stopping in and getting your latest college football information. I do things through the guise of recruiting, the transfer portal, and NIL, and that's what I'm talking about here. I covered a lot of these kids we're talking about today, and that's why you should subscribe to the Portal Podcast, because this is going to be your barometer, not just for your team, but everybody you play against. Who are we going to see, and what are they going to do right here on the Portal Podcast? So next up, I'm going to talk about Bryce Underwood. Most of you have heard about him, but I want to give a little backdrop to what I have seen from seeing him live, and also, again, the demeanor. One of the reasons that I picked the guys that I did today is their personalities. It matters when you have the moxie, the ability to be savvy in the moment, and probably be ahead of your years. Freshmen and sophomores, as I noted at the top, usually struggle. Post-snap reads, better defensive linemen, less time to throw, and a heck of a lot better coverage at the collegiate level than high school lead to a lot of interceptions, tip passes, and just poor performances. But Bryce Underwood is one of those guys, even against elite competition, like when he was at the 7-on-7 finals for OT7, he had like one incompletion in one of the final games. Going through the state tournament against teams that had a lot of talent, CJ Carr's team, etc., they had the ability to make plays because he could put the ball where other guys couldn't, whether it was with his arm strength, the ability to feather a ball over the top of the linebacker in front of the safety, or just throw a bullet on an out route. He has every physical tool known to man, and kind of like DJ Lagway, he's got size. He's 225, 230, but he's an even better athlete in terms of just pure speed. He probably could have been a tight end or H-back. He probably could have been an outside linebacker. He probably could have been a strong safety. But with Bryce Underwood's athleticism and arm strength, quarterback makes the most sense. I also think he probably could have played as a boundary receiver. I mean, he's that gifted a football player. But what is the biggest question with him this year with Michigan? He's got to stay healthy. Just going to throw this in. They don't have a situation where they know what's going to happen if Bryce goes out. Their backup right now has been a little ding, so that's iffy. He's a transfer, but good player, but not on the same level as Bryce in terms of talent. And Michigan needs to get it going again. I'm curious to see how much they run him. I'm curious to see how much they put him in harm's way, or they're going to run the ball, make sure they kind of protect him a little bit. I don't know if they have a realistic shot at the playoff. Of course, it's always the expectation at the University of Michigan. But I do know they're going to go as far as Bryce Underwood can take them. It is what it is. You don't like seeing true freshmen thrown into the fire like this. But if anybody can handle it, it is Bryce Underwood. Speaking of somebody thrown into the fire, Dylan Raiola. Last year, Nebraska had 13 touchdowns and 11 picks. Didn't have a elite group of wide receivers, a rebuilding program. A little better on the offensive line, I think, this year, hopefully. Defense, I think, is going to have some question marks. Plus, they lost Tony White, the defense coordinator from Nebraska, went down to Florida State, and they took some coaches with them. He's going to have to take another step forward. But in conjunction with that, Raiola is really a lot like Bryce Underwood size-wise. He's not the same athlete, but he's got a cannon. He grew up in a great football family. His dad played in Nebraska, a long-time NFL player with the Lions. Elite player. He's one of Nebraska's all-time greats as an offensive lineman, which is saying something. So the bloodlines are certainly there. And he loves being at the University of Nebraska, but he needed help. They went and got a top receiver out of the portal from Kentucky, and they got some more players around him in general. I think Raiola can take a big step, and I think Nebraska can play in a decent bowl game. I'm not ready to say that Raiola, as a true sophomore, will take Nebraska to the playoff, but it wouldn't be shocking. They'd need about every break with penalties, with the way the ball bounces, and, of course, the ugly evil of college football, and that's injuries for that to happen. But if they got to 8-4, 9-3, would it shock me? No. Would it be shocking if they were still a 7-5-ish kind of program because you got a sophomore quarterback? That is also possible. Again, he had 11 picks last year. Not all of those were his fault, but he needed more help. We'll see what happens, but Nebraska is going to need that big step forward from Raiola. And if they don't get it this year, he'll be the guy as a junior, and I think Nebraska has a chance to make the playoff for sure in 2026. Next up, this is a player that can definitely run. Matter of fact, you could argue he is the most dynamic of this group, although there's one other I would argue with. We'll get into it at the next section of the show. Marcel Reed. He's a guy that is really, really athletic, and I just wanted to bring him up. He's played 2 years. Everybody else is a true freshman or sophomore. I just wanted to bring him up because this is the barometer guy that I wanted to use overall. Marcel Reed, I won't go into as much as some of the others. Again, he's technically a third year from high school, but it just shows you the difference once you get to about 400 snaps. Go look at his statistics if you want at A&M. First few games that he played, like when he took over in the Florida game, like they just ran the ball. When they were in situations where they really needed to throw it, they ran a lot of screens and short stuff. He didn't see the field that well. But by the end of the season, they did. I just wanted to bring him up in general. But Marcel Reed is a freaky, freaky athlete. And those are the kinds of guys that can get on the field to help you. In transition, the guy that's probably even further along than what Reed was, but because he shared time last year, didn't probably get as much shine from the media, and he's a West Coast guy, is Damon Williams. We're going to talk about him in just a minute, but just remember that quarterbacks that can move are going to play a little bit earlier, and it's one of the most important things on this list of players that I have, the legs, especially RPO game, red zone, short yardage, and especially goal line. Those guys tend to do the best. And again, I'm going to talk about DeMond in just a second, but the difference between Raiola being really good as a sophomore, in my opinion, and somebody like the way Reed is going into his third year, or DeMond, is the legs, because teams don't have to prepare, nothing against Dylan, the way they do for some of these guys that are young and can really make guys miss. Like the +1, as they talk about, at running back, meaning the first guy that's unblocked, like the free safety, Marcel Reed can absolutely make that kind of player miss. Damon Williams can make that kind of player miss. Bryce Underwood can make that kind of player miss. I don't think Raiola can, and that's something that's very interesting. We'll see what happens with him. So before we go into the break and talk about another guy that could really move in Damon Williams, I want to bring up C.J. Bailey from NC State. He was a really talented player in high school, played at Chaminade Madonna with Jeremiah Smith and a ton of other good players. JoJo Trader, it's at Miami, etc. They have a lot of good players at NC State, but do they have the players necessary to make CJ that next step guy? He's the in-between Damon Williams and Dylan Raiola. He can move. He can make things happen, and he's got a cannon. He's 6'6", 6'7". Is he going to take that step in conjunction with throwing the football? I think C.J. Bailey could. Will he make quicker decisions? Sometimes the game was a little too fast for him last year. He ended up taking over as a freshman. And secondarily, I think he relied on his arm a little too much, wanting to hit the big shot. Sometimes you just got to take the 4-yard check down. You got to hit the 4-yard check down. I think he'll do that a little bit more. Does CJ run more? Do they risk him? Does NC State need to? Probably, but man, it's a big risk, because what happens if CJ Bailey goes down for any extended time? And then with him coming back, and again, the mobility will help this. Will CJ Bailey be ready in the fourth quarter? That moxie we've talked about with some of these guys that can take that next step, and I think Lagway will for sure. Is Bailey somebody not enough people are talking about, because he's been around it forever in terms of like being in really highly competitive situations since he was a young kid, playing with JoJo Trader, Jeremiah Smith, Chance Robinson, and a whole bunch of guys all the way up from Little League. I think he's going to be a surprise. And he's at NC State, so he won't get as much attention as he should. But again, he's more mobile than Raiola, not as much as DeMond, but he could make some guys miss, and he got a ton of playing time last year. CJ Bailey is one to watch. When we come back, we're going to start off with Damon Williams, who, in my opinion, is the most fun guy to talk about on this entire list, but he's out of Washington. Nobody talks about it. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who look for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling for your MVP, eyeing a bold shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race, maybe, or perhaps you've got somebody you really think is going to win it. For me, it's Joe Burrow. Maybe for you, it's Saquon Barkley. Whoever it is, FanDuel lets you make your decision. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because FanDuel Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. So whether you're getting your eye on the big name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in the game. If you're looking at an opportunity with the NFL this season, how about a prediction for Joe Burrow to win NFL MVP? And if you want to go outside the box, perhaps you're going to go with Saquon Barkley, arguably the best running back in the National Football League. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. PrizePicks, run your game. Let's talk about Damon Williams, the absolutely electric, athletic, just fun beyond words quarterback that's going to be a second-year player at the University of Washington. He came up from the state of Arizona, got playing time early, didn't start, but played early, played in like 13 games, did start a couple, including the bowl game, led a dramatic comeback. It came just a teeny bit short against Louisville in the bowl game. But Damon Williams is one of the most gifted runners as a quarterback that I've seen in a long time. For those of you old enough to remember, like I am, Jamel Holloway from the mid-'80s at Oklahoma is probably about the most shake and bake guy I've ever seen at quarterback. He's got similar, I don't know if he's quite as much as Jamel Holloway, but he's in that vein. And at the same time, he's got a big arm, and he can put it on you. The only downside to Damon is he's not the biggest guy. He's probably 5'10", 5'11", if I was to guess. And he's not the biggest kid in terms of like his body size. He's not like 215 yoked up. I'm curious to see how much more weight he's added from the offseason strength and conditioning program at UW. But Damon Williams did, again, play pretty well in a lot of situations. And these are some of the notes that I put down. I went back and watched the game against Louisville. Very accurate, makes quick decisions. This was as a freshman now. He's only a true sophomore, so that's pretty impressive. He's difficult to blitz because if the first guy misses, he's out the backside or up the middle, and it's 15 yards. He's not a 5-yard guy. He's going to get a first down. Electric. He's like a slot receiver or a flanker. If you let him loose, the first guy, like remember I talked about +1 with running back, Damon Williams is that way as a quarterback that's scrambling. Good luck. Secondarily, if you talk about his ability to throw the football, he's getting better and better, but he's already got the deep ball down too. So if you just let him sit back there, he can launch it. He can launch it. He's got that ability to make those awkward throws, kind of like a shortstop in the hole thrown across his body. He's that guy. And if he's set his feet, Damon Williams can let her fly. So my biggest question for him, does he take the easy throws, though? Sometimes he tries to force the ball a little bit last year, and like a lot of these guys. Does he take that next step? Does he take that next step? He only started a few games, but if he can just take the 5-yard to 7-yard play, Washington could be very dangerous against several teams. And they may even upset somebody on the road, because any team that struggles with an option quarterback or like just a guy that can only run, well, Damon can throw it too. It's not one or the other. It is both. He can help you in a shootout. They might beat somebody that's probably 2 touchdowns better than Washington because he got hot. He's going to go get you 50 to 75 yards rushing a game. Now, if it's his day, he could beat somebody that's a lot better than what people think. Also, with Damon, just note, again, he's a true sophomore. This is a guy that played a little bit. That jump is probably going to be pretty big. Next up is somebody that I'm sure a lot of you are curious about, and that's Julian Sayin from Ohio State. He's going to be the quarterback. He played briefly last year, if I remember correctly, but all I need to know is what I've been told. He was the best pure passer on Ohio State's roster last year. That's pretty impressive. If that's the case, here's the other thing you need to know. That quarterback room is pretty loaded, and the wide receivers know what they're doing. That passing game knows what they're doing. Alabama recruited him before he transferred over when Saban retired. This is a really good quarterback. And Lord have mercy. Does Julian Sayin have a lot of tools to work with? Jeremiah Smith. You got Brandon Ennis. You got Carnell Tate. You got a bevy of young running backs. Tight ends are pretty good. Offensive line still shaping out. But if he's even above average, 35 points a game is pretty much a lock. They could score more. I think Sayin is the difference on whether or not Ohio State makes a true run for a national title this year, and that's a lot. Kind of like with Carr, kind of like with Devon Williams just getting Washington to a good bowl game. I don't think they're a national title contender. But all these guys that are in their second year, that's a lot to ask. But he's at Ohio State. So my question, because I didn't see Sayin live in high school, and I don't know him, what's his leadership like? What's his moxie like? And his ability to make plays on the run. Doesn't have to run for a ton of yards. Extend the play. Give a guy like Carnell Tate an extra opportunity. He's a good route runner to get open. It makes something happen. A lot of people don't know about Brandon Ennis yet. They're about to. Of course, everybody knows about Jeremiah Smith. That's a big deal. So if he can extend plays and just be consistent, absolutely. Ohio State can be a national title contender. Wouldn't even shock me if he was at least in the conversation talking about Julian Sayin for the Heisman, because the weapons he's thrown to, he's the quarterback at Ohio State. It's really not that far-fetched. Finally, I just want to make one last point here. There's always somebody else that could have been on this list. And if I didn't mention somebody that's a first or second year player, that's fine. But I went with the guys that I was most comfortable with, that I thought would have the biggest impacts that I know about. This is a great year for early young quarterbacks to get a play. Like last year, there was more veterans. Every other year, it kind of goes down. Then next year, there'll be a lot more returning starters. So this was fun. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. We will see you again soon here on the Portal Podcast.